Okay, Cheva, we're deep in the Tanya. We are still addressing this question, which is that we're talking about the unity of Hashem, that Hashem and His thoughts are one, and we explained what that means, that Hashem and His thoughts are one. And then we explained that the godly soul comes from Hashem's thoughts, that so to speak, just like a father gives birth to a child, and the child comes from the thoughts of the father at that moment, so too Hashem, so to speak, conceived the godly soul. That's how intimately the godly soul is bound up with Hashem. And it came from Hashem's thoughts. And Hashem and His thoughts are one. And we were explaining how that shows how intimate the godly soul is with Hashem. Okay? Then we explained that according to that, all souls should be the same, because we all come from the same exalted source. Okay? But we said that that's not the case, because there's many souls that are more exalted. We explained the forefathers, Moshe Rabbeinu, and we explained that there are lower souls, like the ones of the footsteps, the heels of the Messianic era, that are, so to speak, from the heel. And then we drew a picture and we explained that essentially the whole world exists in three dimensions, which is time and space and soul, and that all of existence is built on this system of 613 limbs. Okay? And we said that Adam represented this complete unit. He had all the souls inside of him. And essentially, Adam represented the head, the beginning of time, and all the souls can be traced through time, going all the way till the end of time, which was, so to speak, like the feet. If you imagine a person, so the beginning of time is like the tip of the head, and that's why the original souls were called the head, and that's why they were very, very exalted. As you go down through time, we said King David's generation was the heart, and as you go down in different generations were the arms, and as you go down, we're at the sole of the foot. And the Gemara says that there's really 30 bones in the foot, which means even the feet have a lot of layers getting down to the lower. Now, what does that all mean? Those are very nice ideas, but the concept is such is that there's nothing physical. We're talking about conceptual ideas. That the earlier generations represented the head because they were very alive. The head is where the action's at, right? The head means aliveness. Yeah, Manny?
Does this idea stop at generations, or does it spread to individual people? Like this generation is like the head of the feet, and then this person is like the head of the foot, goes deeper and deeper, like the foot of the head of the foot.
So we said, that individual people can be the head of the foot, so to speak. The head of any generation is called the tzaddikim. It's called the leaders of that generation. So the head of the head is Adam. The head of, as you move down through the body, this whole soul, the head will always be the tzaddikim. The heart will also be. The heart will be the ones that are more involved in the feeling aspect. The head will be the ones that will be the intellectual leaders. The heart will be the ones who are the emotional leaders. The hands of any generation will be the ones that are the action people of any generation, because the hands are the function of action. Yeah?
Is David the head of the heart or the heart of the heart?
He's the heart of the heart. He's the heart of the heart. King David is all heart. Of course, he was brilliant. The Gemara says that any time that we paskin like King David in any place that he's mentioned in the Gemara, the halach is always like David HaMelech. He was the Gadol Ador. But he was tefillah, va'ani tefillah. He was the heart.
So he was more exalted than the head of the heart, whoever that was.
Yeah. He's also, King David is the heart. Of course, he's the head. He had the head also. But he represented as heart as it can get. He represented everything that's good with the heart. And and we mentioned just now that the hands of every generation are like the action people. Like every generation, there's always people that are involved in tzedakah in a major way. Tzedakah is with the hands. You have askonim. Somebody was telling askonim, right? People that were involved in building the shuls. They had the shuls in their houses in Europe. Those are the people that are action-oriented. They're the mighty fists of every generation, as they were always getting things done. So you have the head of the feet, you have the heart of the feet, you have the hands of the feet, and then you have the feet of the feet. You have the simple folk. We're in the generation of the feet. What that means is that there's a certain numbness. We explain, what does feet mean? Feet is where there's no action. Feet, we said, is basically dead skin, especially the bottom of the feet. We also explained that conceptually, that the bottom of the feet represent an area that you don't even have light. The sun could be shining on you completely. Even if a person didn't have the clothing on, the whole sun, everything is covered in sun, but the bottom of the feet are always without sun. They're dark. They're without revelation. There's no action there. But we explained that the greatest part about the concept of the foot is that it's the place that makes contact with the ground. Nothing actually goes anywhere unless there's a foot to take you there. And therefore, even though there's no action, it's not where the intellect is pumping, it's not where the feelings are coursing through, and it's not where the hands of doing and activating different projects and missions. But if the feet aren't working properly, nothing actually gets to the desired destination. And I thought of something that always was very powerful to me, which is, what's a greater revelation of Hashem's light? That you'll find God in your head? That God existed with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Is that an amazing thing? That God could be found amongst the patriarchs and the great sages of old? Does that impress you, so to speak? No, because the head is where the action is. Of course you're going to find Hashem. The way I like to say it is it amazing that God is in the Beis Medrash? Does that amaze you that Hashem is in the Beis HaMikdash? Is that an amazing thing? No, I expect that. That's where you find Hashem, in the Beis Medrash. But you know what amazes me? That you'll find God in the lowest places. You'll find God in the dark alleyways, in the sketchy places where you thought He could never be there.
Netflix.
Even in such places that should not be mentioned, the power of Mashiach is He's going to reveal that God was even there. Now that's going to be, even there, that's going to be a big stretch.
Does that mean like one show is godly and the rest?
It means that Hashem was the one that was making Netflix also. But He was so hidden there. Now that does not mean that, if He's hidden, the Rebbe said He's hidden there, I should go find Him there. It's in the same way, you shouldn't go find Him in the dark alleyways. But the power of our generation is such that we're going to reveal that Hashem was even at the bottom of the feet. He was even in the places that you least suspected He was there. The places of the greatest concealment, He was also there. The words of Rav Nachman, Va'afilu be'astora, shebetoich ha'astora, even in the places that are so hidden, the hiddenness of the hidden, that it seems so black. Gam shom nimtzu Hashem yisborach. Also Hashem is there. And even after all the very, very difficult things where I felt like Hashem, you were not with me in my life. You abandoned me, so to speak. I knew you were with me in the Beis Medrash, but I went to school, I went to these places, I was on campus, and you abandoned me. Hashem, I'm standing up because you never abandoned me. You're even in those places. The places that someone might call the God-forsaken places. Hashem, you're also there. That's going to be the revelation that we're going to give in our generation. And that's why it's going to be crazy, because when the resurrection of the dead happens, I always think about this. Who's going to get out of the ground? When Mashiach comes, there's going to be a resurrection also. So who's going to get out of the ground? Rashi, Moses, like Abraham, Abe, Zeta Abe. Who else? Like Rachel Imenu, the Baba Sali. What did you guys learn today? The Ran. You guys are all learning the Ran. The Ran. Yeah, the Ran. He's going to get up out of the ground. Yeah. Is it, you going to name another tzaddik? Name another tzaddik. Yaakov Avinu is going to get, and Mashiach is going to be here, And they're all going to get up right there from the Mount of Olives, and what are they going to say? And they're going to see us, like taking selfies with Mashiach. Mashiach, yeah, selfie stick with Mashiach. And Rashi's going to look at us like, who are you guys? Like, and we're like, hey, you made it! Like, we got like Mashiach shirts. Rashi, put one of these on, Mashiach, he's here now. Selfie with Rashi. And he's going to be like, you guys, you did it, you pulled it off. And we're going to say, it's going to be amazing, like, we did it. And there's going to be a moment of like, who are you, creatures? You Netflix, creatures. And we're going to say, with all due respect, the darkness that we went through as being the people of the bottom of the foot is a darkness that never existed before. That we were able to reveal Hashem in the foot, in the bottom of the darkest places. That's going to be our claim to fame. And that's in many ways exactly why our generation, the end of the foot, the bottom of the foot, is the one that's going to have the greatest revelation. Because that's like a resurrection itself. The bottom of the foot is basically dead skin. We're basically showing that Hashem is even in the deadest, I don't even think that's a word, but I'm going to use it, the deadest of places. The most God-forsaken places, Hashem is there, and He never abandoned us, ever. Never. I just want to just pick up at this point, which is now that the world has been created as this one long soul that stretches from the beginning to the end of time. Let's look back in the Tanya. Now we're going to be able to explain the answer to the question. V'chein b'chol dor v'dor yesh rashe alfei Yisrael. Every generation has, you notice the language, rashe alfei Yisrael, the heads of the thousands, the heads of, it wasn't just being poetic. It meant that, we say that the heads of the generation. Why do we speak that way? Because it means that they're connected to the head of this great soul. Okay? It actually means what it says, the heads. Not just because the head gives direction, but it means Kabbalistically the head. It's connected to the head of this great long soul. That their souls are like the head. In relation to the neshamas of the simple folk that don't feel that much, and the people of the land, which in this case means not so learned, more ignorant, and souls upon souls, and every single soul is included a soul, a ruach, and neshama. We're not going to speak about this right now. It means that at every single tier, there are heads of those tiers, and all of that, in every generation, there's heads of those generations, of the neshama, heads of the ruach, heads of the nefesh. There's every system you could imagine, in every generation. The general system is that we have the beginning of time is the heads, and the end of time is the foot. But in every generation, there's a microcosm. There's the heads of the head, and there's the head of the arm, and there's the head of the pancreas, and there's the head of the... And each one of those means something energetically. And we're now at the foot and the bottom of the foot. But what's interesting, mikol makoin, okay, this is where it gets good. Nevertheless, shoyrish kol hanefesh ruach neshama, kula miroish kol hamadregas ad seif kol dargan, from the highest of the souls to the lowest of the souls, ad soif kol dargan malubish beguf ami aratzim v'kal shebekalim, and the lowest simpletons, nimshach memoyach ha'elyon, comes from the highest place. How do we understand this? I'm going to explain. Shi chachmi la kaviyachol. Okay. What he just said is, we're trying to answer the question, if God and His thoughts are one, then how do you have different souls? The answer is, the way that God gives birth to the godly soul and the intimate connection that He has to it is like the image of a father giving birth to a child. When the father gives birth to a child, where does the child come from? We already mentioned it. From the father's mind. The mind of the father. What is included in that thought?
Something unique.
So there's an imprint from the father himself. included in that thought, which goes down the spinal column like we mentioned in earlier shiurim, and becomes a seed that is basically almost so small that it's spiritual. But in that tiny seed is all the genetic information for a child, and if you stretch out the helix, can come to the sun and back. A huge amount of information. In that seed, when the seed goes into the mother, what does the mother do? She unwinds that code over 9 months, and she reveals that inside of that seed was in fact an entire child, including what? The head of the child, and the heart of the child, and the limbs of the child. All 613 parts of the child were there. Which means the entire child started in the mind of the father, right? It comes down to the spinal column like we explained, and it becomes that seed. That's the process of something spiritual becoming physical. That seed is then unwound, is expanded. But all the mother does is reveal, is unwind a child that was already there, but only there in potential. The entire child was there. So let's say it differently. Was the foot of the child in the thought of the father?
Yes.
Yes, it's included there. Was the toenail of the child there? Was the pancreas there? Was the spleen there? Was the liver there? Was the heart? Was the head? It was all there in potential. It was there. It was just that it took time to unwind it. Okay? Which means that there's the foot of the child and the brain of the child. When you see the brain of the child and the foot of the child, does it look different to you? Yeah, the brain, like we said, the brain's where the action's at. The foot is like, where the athlete's foot is at. It looks very different in the child. But did they both come from the exact same place? Yeah. Completely. Which means, when you see the fully expressed child, it looks like separate things. But if you trace back where the child comes from, it comes from a unified source, the mind of the father. It's only when it expresses itself outwards do we actually see that there's something that looks different. But they come from the same place. This is the Tanya is explaining to us the source of the godly soul. We all came from Hashem's thoughts. The highest of the souls, i.e. the head of this vast soul, and the heart of this vast soul, and the feet of the vast soul, and the kidneys of the vast soul, all the different elements, all came from the inner point of Hashem's thoughts, which is one with Hashem. Only when that soul was expanded outwards do we now see that there's a head and a heart, and there's different levels of souls. And this answers our question, which is, if we all come from the same source and Hashem and His thoughts are all one, how do you have different higher souls and lower souls, ones that feel more, ones that are more numb? The answer is, the way that our souls are created is like an analogy of the way that a child is created. The entire child comes from this unified thought of the Father, but as the child becomes expressed outwards, we see that it has different parts. And therefore, the most amazing takeaway comes from this. This should blow your mind. The most exalted soul, let's say Moses, Avram Avinu. Literally the head, so powerfully connected to the light of Hashem. And now let's picture, sadly, a Yiddish somewhere, who knows where, drinking OE from a bag, and just, Hashem, you just want to cry and help this person. Feels nothing, is not into anything. So to speak, the bottom of the foot. And you're trying to help him, and it's just you want, and so to speak, a very unfeeling person. So should you see that person, you're like the bottom of the foot, sorry, like you don't feel anything, there's nothing to talk about. Are you kidding me? How should we look at every single person now? Do you know that your soul and your soul and your soul and all of our souls come from the same place that Moshe Rabbeinu comes from? Do you know what that means? We come from the same place as Avram Avinu, the same place as Mama Rachel and Leah, The same place with Rashi and the Baba Sali and Rabbi Kiva Eger and Pnei Yeshua. The same place as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the Baal Shem Tov and the Baal Tanya. The same place. The thoughts of the Father, the Chachma Vatzilus of Hashem, so to speak, the very intimate place. We all come from that place. We're like the seed that comes from Hashem. And now the child, so to speak, our collective soul has expanded, and some of them are the head, some of them are the feet, but we all come from the exact same place. That should blow your mind anytime you look at any person. You understand what that means? You come from the same place as Moshe Rabbeinu. We should be Zoich HaMamish to see all of us as coming from the same place as Moshe Rabbeinu. Amen. To be continued, Rabbi Yisai. The time is just starting to heat up.